Welcome back to the second video in our series of 5 steps to building a strong and successful team. And today we're going to talk about step number 2. Now, imagine a scenario with me. You're the CEO of a company or the leader of a team. You're in a strategy session with your leadership team. And as you all get into the thick of things, there seems to be an increasing amount of discomfort beginning to appear. It becomes increasingly clear to you that there are two vastly differing opinions that are beginning to emerge within the team. One part of the team thinks going this way is the smartest strategy, while the other part clearly feels exactly the opposite. The first group is a bit more vocal and assertive, while the other side seems to be a bit more cautious. And you as a leader can sense a sort of impasse beginning to develop. But everyone on your team is being very cooperative and polite with one another. And they keep going around in circles, arriving at nothing really. And you know the reason why. There is a cultural discomfort with confrontational conversations at play with some in your team. I mean, I've lived in Southeast Asia a few years, and I know how certain cultures are prefer not to be confrontational at all. Or you know that there is someone on your team who will not openly assert his opinion against a female colleague for fear of offending her or upsetting her. Perhaps there is someone else on your team who's clearly an introvert and perhaps like me, an ISFJ on the Myers-Briggs, and just does not like confrontation of any kind. And because of all of these things, no one really seems to want to disturb the status quo. And you all keep going round in circles around each other for an hour, and then the assistant knocks on the door and says time's up, and you all get up and leave smiling at each other. One more unproductive meeting complete, or one more polite interaction complete. For a team that is supposed to lead the entire organization forward, and this kind of stuff happens all the time. So many leaders and teams today are stuck in mediocrity and status quo and cannot seem to find a way to grow beyond a certain point because they are simply afraid of saying the wrong thing or hurting a colleague in the process of a conversation that actually desperately needs to happen. And so they'd much rather fake an artificial sense of harmony within the team, even going out perhaps on that obligatory happy hour after that meeting, than to disturb the peace. Teams substitute artificial harmony for productive conflict. They pretend to agree with one another just so that they can avoid a conflict. And all the while, actually, hostilities and rivalries and tensions continue to simmer just beneath the surface. They develop a complete indifference towards one another. And as a result, indifference perhaps to the collective objectives as an organization. Or mistakes that might have been exposed or resolved through open debate and conversation go completely undiscovered, completely unfixed, and over a period of time causing further decline in productivity and creativity. So step number 2, after first establishing trust on your team, is to remove the fear of conflict in your team. The fear of conflict does nothing but rob your team of clarity and creativity and cohesion. You see, conflict is an inevitable part of organization life. It is all around us. It is ubiquitous. The question is not how to avoid it. The question is, on the converse, how do you get maximum mileage out of it? Or perhaps take it even another step further and say, how do you facilitate conflict? Out of constructive and productive conflict comes creativity and innovation. Now, to be clear, it's a certain type of conflict that works for you, if harvested intelligently. Not the destructive personal sort of conflict, not the meanness, not the hatred for one another. So it is not the artificial harmony we want, and it is not the meanness and the hatred. The conflict that you want to go looking for is the conflict of ideas. It's a conflict of philosophies. It's a conflict of those, it's those irreplaceable light bulb moments that are so critical for your team. This type of conflict, or rather this level of conflict, lies somewhere in the middle of those two extremes, artificial harmony and mean personal conflict. This middle conflict, this healthy type of conflict, is your best friend. This type of conflict of ideas is not bad. It's good. It's refreshing. It's not draining. Now, here's the thing to remember. The reason this is step number two in building a healthy team is because conflict is not possible without trust. You can remove the fear of conflict in a team that trusts one another. Conflict in such a context can be just about the pursuit of good ideas, of truth, of innovation, of creativity, of bold visions, of visionary strategies and objectives in pursuit of the collective success, because there is trust on the team. Of course, these are not linear processes. There is not 100% trust built before fear of conflict is removed. They tend to build and develop over time, often in overlapping circles. But the key is that trust has begun to develop in the team, and now conflict does not necessarily have to be a negative thing. It does not have to be ignored. It does not have to be suppressed or shied away from. So here's the challenge for you, Mr. Leader or Madam Leader. Get your team to a place where there is such an implicit trust in one another that when you actually go into a meeting, everyone on your team is free to give the discussion everything they've got with all their enthusiasm and all of their energy, to the extent that someone observing your meeting from outside the glass door might actually think you guys really do not like each other. Building that kind of trust and allowing for that kind of freedom and that kind of conflict is no small task. But that's the point at which breakthroughs will begin to happen for your organization and success will become your portion. Let me leave you once again with a quote, a pithy quote this time, as you chew on your role as a leader to remove the fear of conflict on your team. This short quote is from Patrick Lencioni, the author of The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. Conflict is productive. Think about it. Cheers.